I've buried something in this bed that may well feed it for decades. It's an ancient practice called Hugelkultur, and today I'm going to show you my version of it. Now, this is just the first chapter in a series that I'm going to be doing on this entire ecosystem. But today, we're going to start off with the bones, stacking the blocks, building the Hugelkultur core, and of course, adding the soil. But first, some of you might be wondering, what exactly is a Hugelkultur, and what am I trying to accomplish here? Hugelkultur is an ancient German and Eastern European gardening practice that's been around for centuries. It was popularized in modern permaculture by Holzer. At its core, it's the practice of burying logs and then layering several other materials on top in sequence to create a long-term, slow-release nutrient system and a spongy underground core that stores water for your plants. It begins with the all-important layer of logs. Almost any logs will work. Softwoods like pine and fir break down quickly, while hardwoods like oak and maple take much longer. What you want to avoid is rot-resistant wood like cedar, allelopathic trees like black walnut and eucalyptus that can harm the plants in your bed, and anything chemically treated like old railroad ties or compressed wood products. And before you ask, palm trees aren't actually trees. They're monocots, basically giant grass. So palms don't have wood. Weird, huh? Once your bottom layer is down, you fill in the gaps with sticks and branches, packing everything as tightly as you can. Whatever gaps remain get stuffed with leaves and mulch. Normally, you'd top this off with compost to feed the microbes breaking down the wood. They're going to be hungry for nitrogen just like your plants. But I did something a little different here, and I'll explain that in the core section. After that comes your soil. Make it deep enough to keep your plant's roots happy, because while those logs will eventually break down into the perfect habitat for moisture-seeking roots, your first season, or first few seasons, only has access to that top layer while everything decomposes down below. Your absolute minimum should be 6 to 8 inches of soil, depending on what you're growing. You can build a raised bed out of all kinds of materials, but I went with concrete blocks because they're relatively inexpensive and last a lot longer than most alternatives. First thing is to clear the area and level the soil. This part is crucial when you're stacking blocks, especially dry stacking like me. My yard slopes down from north to south, so I had to dig into the soil on the north side to keep everything level. There are plenty of tricks for leveling, but honestly I just eyeballed it. I embrace the imperfect wonkiness of my work. For me, it adds my character into the garden. But that's just me. You do it your way. To improve stability, I staggered the blocks at each level. This matters most on the corners, so the wall isn't easy to tip. And remember, if your bottom layer isn't level, those imperfections only get worse with every layer you stack on top. Over time, the soil exerts pressure on the wall and will push it to bulge outward if it isn't sturdy. So I drove rebar every few feet, resting against the inside of the blocks on the inside of the wall. That helps stop the soil from shoving the wall over. Since this is sandy soil, I drove the rebar a full 2 feet down to hold it in place. Now that we've got a frame to work in, it's time to fill it. I wanted to save the largest chunks of the avocado tree for some wood projects, but we used several big branches as the core of the bed, giving wood from a 100-year-old family avocado tree a second life as the moisture reservoir for our new garden. Just be careful not to hit your wall with a log. Trust me, it's not fun to fix that. Next, I stacked in the smaller branches and sticks, plus chunks of avocado wood and shavings from chiseling out one of the logs from my avocado planter. Then I filled the remaining gaps with leaves, mostly oak and avocado, but I used whatever I could find around the yard. Now, here's where I went a different route. Instead of topping this with compost, I dumped several pounds of used coffee grounds over the leaves, mixed them in, and washed it all down with the hose. Wood can lock up nitrogen as it breaks down. The coffee grounds help supply that nitrogen and kickstart decomposition. I added about 1.5 bags of worm castings. Any fertilizer or amendment you add here should be organic, not synthetic. Microbes are the engine of the whole system. Heavy synthetic fertilizer can disrupt soil microbial communities over time, while organic inputs tend to support them. Now for the soil, I picked up a raised bed mix, a sandy loam base with around 70% compost. I usually go with a 50-50 mix, but I used this higher compost blend in place of a dedicated compost layer between the leaves and the soil. After laying down a thin first layer of soil, I hit it with water, really oversaturating it to force the soil down into the Hugelkultur layer below. I wanted to see if I had any voids that would sink. In total, I added close to 8 inches of soil on top, packing it in as I went and watering it in again multiple times. A few spots sank a tiny bit, but nothing major. If you're trying to figure out how much soil you need, there are some really easy calculators out there. With all that organic matter in the Hugelkultur layer, the soil level is going to shrink. I've got a special mulch planned for exactly that, but we'll get into that in the next video. Let me jump forward a couple of months to something I added later. Concrete blocks are thermal mass. They soak up heat all day long and release it slowly, which is great if you've got cold winters, since that stored warmth protects your roots. But here in the California summer, those same blocks can bake the root zone. So I went looking for ways to keep the soil cooler. First, I packed the open block cavities with straw to create a dead air insulation barrier, inspired by a technique I saw at the Lyle Center for Regenerative Studies. It's cheap, it's easy, and it can't hurt. So I'm trying it. Then I draped a roll of jute cloth over the south wall, partly to keep direct sun off of the concrete, and partly, let's be honest, so the bed looks a little less like, "Hi, I'm a concrete wall." We'll see how the bed performs through the summer. I'll update you on how these experiments turn out. Well, that's it for the foundation. In Chapter 2, we're going to go over the soil science, including the fungal networks and worm integrations that really make this bed come alive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you there.